Get out of my sight. You're ruining my masterpiece. The scream echoed across the studio, shattering a young woman's dream in seconds. He fired her for being too ugly for his camera, convinced he was the king of the world. But he didn't know the one terrifying secret she was hiding under that humble costume. This wasn't just another struggling actress, she was the one person who could destroy his entire life with a single phone call. We've all been there, judged, dismissed, or made to feel small by someone drunk on a little bit of power. It's a gut-wrenching feeling when your worth is measured solely by someone else's shallow standards. It makes you question if hard work and inner beauty even matter in a world obsessed with appearances. But what happens when the underdog holds the keys to the kingdom? Today, we're diving into a Hollywood drama that serves a piping hot dish of instant karma. This is the story of Ethan Brooks, an arrogant director, and Chloe Barnes, the mysterious woman he underestimated. It's a roller coaster of humiliated pride, shocking twists, and a redemption arc that will restore your faith in justice. You think you know how this ends? Trust me, you don't. Imagine holding the fate of your tormentor in your hands. Would you crush them, or would you teach them a lesson they'd never forget? Ethan is about to walk into a trap of his own making, pushing his luck until the very ground beneath him crumbles. The countdown to his shocking revelation starts now, and the fallout is going to be absolutely massive. Before we witness this poetic justice unfold, I want you to join our family of truth seekers. If you believe that character matters more than looks, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Like this video if you're ready to see a bully get exactly what they deserve. Let's get into it. The chaotic symphony of the film set crashed to a violent halt when Ethan Brooks, the self-anointed genius director, roared cut. With enough force to rattle the lighting rigs. It wasn't just a creative pause, it was a thunderclap signaling a devastating storm. He marched toward the center stage, his Italian leather boots clicking ominously against the concrete floor, eyes blazing with a toxic mix of exhaustion and disdain. The crew froze in their tracks, holding their breath, all too accustomed to this brand of high-stakes Hollywood drama, knowing that when Ethan got into this foul mood, someone was about to be crushed under the massive, suffocating weight of his ego. He looked like a king surveying his kingdom, but in that moment, he was nothing more than a tyrant looking for a victim to blame for his own deep-seated insecurities. Standing directly in the crosshairs was Chloe Barnes, the aspiring actress who had been struggling to meet his impossible, superficial visual standards all morning. She nervously adjusted her costume, a modest, slightly fraying outfit that seemed to offend Ethan's sensibilities more than a bad performance ever could. To him, this wasn't just a simple creative disagreement regarding a scene, it was a brutal boss versus employee power play where he held all the cards and she held none. He glared at her, letting the silence stretch until it was physically uncomfortable, ensuring every single crew member from the grip to the sound guy was watching the spectacle he was about to orchestrate. It was a tense standoff, the kind that makes you want to look away but forces you to stare, holding the entire room captive in fear. "Look at you," Ethan sneered, his voice dripping with an arrogance that chilled the air more effectively than the studio's air conditioning. "You don't belong in my frame, Chloe. You are actively ruining the aesthetic I've spent months cultivating." He gestured vaguely at her face, dismissing her entire existence with a careless, cruel wave of his hand. He was completely blind to any inner beauty or raw, untapped talent she might possess. He only cared about the glossy, superficial veneer that he believed sold tickets and won awards. It was a classic, ugly case of judging a book by its cover, but Ethan felt entirely justified in his cruelty. In his warped, materialistic world, appearance was the only currency that mattered, and he had unilaterally decided Chloe was bankrupt. Then came the words that stopped hearts and shattered dreams: "You're fired. Get off my set immediately, and don't look back." He didn't just dismiss her professionally, he humiliated her in front of 50 people she had worked alongside for weeks, stripping her of her dignity. It felt like a public execution, void of any grace or professional courtesy. The makeup artists looked away, the camera operators shuffled their feet nervously, but nobody dared to speak up against the tyrant who signed their checks. Ethan stood tall, chest puffed out, feeling powerful and in control, completely unaware that this act of unnecessary cruelty was the first domino in a chain of events that would eventually bring him to his knees in a spectacular fashion. "I don't know who let you pass the casting audition," he continued, adding salt to the open wound, "but they clearly need glasses or a new career." He let out a harsh, barking laugh, a sound that found no echo in the silent, terrified studio. He was so sure of his position as the millionaire genius that the thought of consequences never even crossed his mind. He didn't realize that don't judge is a golden rule for a reason, and that life has a funny, brutal way of balancing the scales when you least expect it. He was burning bridges with a flamethrower, convinced he was simply clearing away the weeds to make room for his masterpiece, oblivious to the raging fire he was starting. Most people would have crumbled into tears right there, running away in shame, but Chloe just stood her ground, absorbing the venom with a strange, stoic resolve. The crew waited for a scene, for screaming, for a plea, but she offered none of it. Ethan mistook her silence for submission, patting himself on the back for making the tough call that no one else had the stomach to make. He turned his back on her, signaling the end of her time there, completely oblivious to the fact that he had just made the biggest, most expensive mistake of his entire career. The air crackled with unspoken tension, a silent promise that this story was far from over and the bill was coming due.
As security escorted her out, gripping her arm as if she were a criminal, Ethan didn't even spare a glance, already shouting orders for the next setup. He wiped his hands on a towel as if cleaning off dirt, unaware that the dirt he just discarded was the financial foundation of his entire project. The whisper started immediately among the crew, low and urgent, sensing that a moral line had been crossed. Ethan felt invincible, high on his own power supply, but the universe was already plotting his instant karma. He had kicked the chessboard over in a fit of rage, not realizing his opponent hadn't even made her first move yet, and she was playing a much longer game. Chloe Barnes didn't scream, and she didn't beg, which was perhaps the most unnerving part of the whole ordeal for anyone paying attention. As the security guard gently, almost apologetically, guided her toward the heavy exit doors, she paused, turning back to face the man who had just dismantled her dignity. There was no fire of rage in her eyes, only a cold, calculating calm that seemed entirely out of place for a fired extra with no power. She looked at Ethan not with anger, but with a kind of profound pity. Like a parent watching a child make a mistake they would soon bitterly regret. It was a look that should have sent shivers down his spine, had he been paying attention to anything other than his own reflection. "You're making a mistake, Ethan," she said, her voice soft but cutting through the studio's silence like a razor blade through silk. It wasn't a threat shouted in anger. It sounded more like a statement of undeniable fact, a weather forecast predicting a hurricane. The crew exchanged nervous glances, sensing the weight behind her words, even if they couldn't understand the source of her confidence. In a town fueled by histrionic Hollywood drama, this quiet dignity was rarer than a diamond and twice as hard. She held her head high, refusing to let his arrogance define her worth or break her spirit in that defining moment. Ethan, of course, just laughed, a dismissive bark that echoed his complete lack of situational awareness. "The only mistake I made was hiring you in the first place," he retorted, turning back to his bank of monitors. He was too busy admiring his own genius to see the secret identity hiding in plain sight right in front of him. He dismissed her warning as the desperate ramblings of a nobody, a rich girl wannabe who couldn't handle heat of the real industry. He was writing her off as a footnote in his biography, unaware she was actually the author of his next painful chapter. Chloe adjusted her bag on her shoulder, her posture impeccable, radiating an inner beauty that the camera lens had failed to capture, but the human I couldn't miss. She walked past the weeping makeup artist, giving her a reassuring squeeze on the shoulder, a gesture of unconditional love even in her own moment of apparent defeat. It was a stark contrast to Ethan's brutality, highlighting the massive divide between the natural leader she was and the bullying boss he pretended to be. She was leaving the set physically, but her presence lingered like ozone after a storm, a ghost haunting the rafters. Outside the studio doors, the bright California sun felt blinding, a harsh spotlight on her sudden unemployment status. But Chloe pulled out her phone, not to call a taxi or cry to her mom, but to send a single cryptic text message. She wasn't just a failed actress. She was a strategist who knew that the game was long and revenge was a dish best served cold. She took a deep breath, inhaling the smog and potential of Los Angeles, knowing that true redemption often requires a descent into the underworld before the glorious rise. She wasn't defeated, she was just repositioning her pieces on the board for the checkmate. The producer's daughter, a title nobody on that lot, knew exactly how the machinery of this production worked because she owned the gears. She could have shut it down right then, pulled the plug, and watched Ethan flail in the dark instantly. But that was too easy, too simple for a profound lesson he needed to learn. Don't judge was a concept he needed to feel in his bones, not just hear in a lecture. So she decided to let the play continue, but with a new, uncredited role for herself that would allow her to watch him rot from the inside out. She walked away from the lot, a solitary figure against the massive studio gates, leaving behind a ticking time bomb wrapped in silence. Inside, Ethan was already shouting about lighting setups, oblivious to the fact that his budget, his schedule, and his future were tied to the woman he just discarded like trash. The ugly girl was gone, but the architect of his fate was just getting started. It was a moment of poetic justice in the making, waiting for the perfect time to strike and level his ego to the ground. With Chloe effectively purged from his kingdom, Ethan Brooks unleashed the full, unchecked force of his obsession with visual perfection. He treated the production budget not as a hard limit, but as a vague suggestion he could ignore at will. I want more gold in this shot. Real gold, not that prop trash. He screamed, demanding expensive set changes on a whim. The line producer, a sweaty, anxious man named Gary, tried to intervene, waving a spreadsheet that bled red ink. But Ethan was a director, and in his mind, art justified any cost, especially when he wasn't the one personally signing the checks. Ethan, we're burning through the contingency fund faster than we can print money, Gary pleaded, his voice trembling with genuine fear. The studio won't authorize these overrides without approval. Ethan just rolled his eyes, a classic display of boss versus employee dynamics where logic goes to die. I don't care about the bean counters. I care about the vision. He shouted back, literally throwing production schedule into the trash can. He was behaving like a millionaire playing with Monopoly money, completely disconnected from the reality of the working-class crew, depending on this job for their rent and groceries. He ordered custom-made costumes flown in from Italy, overnight shipping for rare flowers that would die in a day, and lighting rigs that cost more than a small house. Every decision was fueled by arrogance and a desperate, clawing need to prove he was a visionary genius. He was building a Tower of Babel, brick by expensive brick, blind to the unstable foundation he was creating. The crew worked double shifts, exhausted and demoralized, their whispers of dissent growing louder in the shadows. They missed the calm presence of people like Chloe, replaced now by the erratic chaos of a madman. Ethan's behavior wasn't just reckless, it was a symptom of a man who had never been told no in his entire life. He believed his own hype, surrounded by yes-men who were too afraid of being fired to tell him the hard truth. He was the emperor with no clothes, strutting through a production that was bleeding out financially. He mocked the budget constraints as small thinking, unaware that his big thinking was steering the ship directly into an iceberg. The Hollywood drama was unfolding behind the scenes, far more dramatic and dangerous than anything he was capturing on camera. You worry too much. Ethan scoffed at Gary, sipping an imported espresso that cost $20. When this wins awards, nobody will care what it costs to make. He was banking on a future glory to pay for his present sins, a gamble that rarely pays off. He didn't see the instant karma accumulating like debt, interest compounding with every rude remark and wasted dollar. He was digging a hole so deep that soon even the sunlight wouldn't be able to reach him. He was creating a masterpiece of disaster, frame by frame. He ignored the urgent emails from the studio, deleted voicemails from the executives, and isolated himself in his bubble of perceived perfection. He was convinced that the ugly elements of filmmaking like budgets, schedules, and human decency were beneath him. He didn't realize that these constraints were the only things keeping his dream alive. By ignoring the warnings, he was severing the lifeline of production with his own hands. He was a captain drilling holes in his own hull to let more water in, thinking it would make the ship swim faster. As the week wore on, The atmosphere on set became toxic, heavy with dread. The joy of filmmaking was replaced by a grim march toward the inevitable crash. Ethan stood in the center of it all, a conductor of chaos, waving his baton while the orchestra burned around him. He had no idea that the producer's daughter was watching the dailies from afar, seeing every dollar wasted, every person mistreated. He was auditioning for his own downfall, and he was nailing the part perfectly, totally unaware that the reviews were going to be brutal. A few days later, a new face appeared on the busy set, though nobody looked closely enough to realize she wasn't new at all. Chloe Barnes returned, not as the aspiring actress, but as Annie, a lowly production assistant clad in baggy overalls, a grease-stained baseball cap pulled low, and oversized, thick-rimmed glasses. It was a classic secret identity trope, played out in real life, a masterclass in camouflage. She carried trays of coffee, swept floors, and moved heavy boxes, blending into the background invisible to a man like Ethan, who only saw people as props or obstacles. She moved with a practiced humility that disarmed everyone who crossed her path. Annie was everywhere, anticipating needs before they were spoken, handing water to sweating grips, and organizing the chaotic script notes for the continuity supervisor. She was working the trenches, observing Ethan from the perspective of the boss versus employee divide, seeing the tyranny without the filter of fame or potential profit. It was a test of character, a way to see if there was any inner beauty left in him, or if he was truly rotten to the core. Ethan barked orders at her, without even making eye contact, treating her like furniture. Coffee. Black. Now. Head yell, snapping his fingers in the air. Chloe, as Annie, would scurry over, presenting the cup with a quiet nod and a tremble she faked perfectly. He never said thank you. He never asked her name. To him, she was just a pair of hands, a tool to facilitate his genius. The irony was thick enough to cut with a knife the woman he treated like a servant was the rich girl who effectively signed his paychecks and owned the studio. The disguise allowed Chloe to hear the unvarnished truth of the set. She heard the crew complaining about the late hours, the lack of respect, and Ethan's spiraling madness. She saw the fear in their eyes when he walked into a room. It broke her heart, but also steeled her resolve to see this through. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about saving the people who actually made the movie. She was the undercover boss, gathering evidence of the trial that was coming, building a case against his cruelty. Despite the humiliation of serving the man who fired her, Chloe found a strange sense of purpose in the shadows. She was a guardian angel of the set, fixing small disasters before they reached Ethan's radar. When a cable snapped, she found a replacement. When a permit was lost, she miraculously located a copy in the files. She was the glue holding his crumbling empire together, all while he mocked her clumsiness or slow pace. It was a study in don't judge, a lesson happening in real time that he was failing spectacularly. One afternoon, Ethan bumped into her while texting, spilling hot coffee on his expensive suede shoes. "Watch it, you idiot!" he screamed, looming over her with menace. Annie apologized profusely, head down, cleaning the mess with a dirty rag. A normal person might have felt shame, but Chloe only felt a cold clarity. She saw the ugliness of his soul up close, the way he punched down whenever he felt slighted. There was no regret in his eyes, only entitlement and rage. She finished cleaning his shoes and walked away, clutching the dirty rags like a shield. The casting audition for his character was over, and he had failed every metric. But she wasn't ready to reveal herself just yet. The production was teetering on the edge of a cliff, and she needed to be there to catch Eider, push it over when the time was right. She adjusted her glasses, hid her familiar eyes, and went back to work, the most powerful person in the room disguised as the weakest. The disaster struck on a Tuesday afternoon, right in the middle of the most expensive, complex scene of the movie. The main lighting rig, a complex beast of technology and power, short-circuited with a loud, terrifying pop, plunging the set into absolute darkness. Panic erupted immediately among the crew. Ethan was apoplectic, screaming at the gaffer, blaming everyone for sabotaging his vision. "Fix it. We are losing light," he howled, checking his watch as thousands of dollars burned away with every second of delay. It was Hollywood drama at its peak, a crisis that threatened to wrap the day early and cost them a fortune they didn't have. The technical team was stumped, running around with flashlights in a panic. The console was fried, and the backup generator wasn't syncing with the new digital board. Ethan was on the verge of firing the entire electric department on the spot. That's when Annie stepped forward from the shadows. In her previous life, before the acting bug bit, Chloe had spent summers watching engineers work at her father's studio. She knew the systems better than the Reynolds guys did. She slipped past the shouting match, her secret identity shielding her from scrutiny, and knelt by the main fuse box. With deft, confident hands, she bypassed the fried circuit, rerouting the power through an auxiliary linear trick she had learned years ago from a master electrician. It was a moment of brilliance, a flash of the producer's daughter expertise shining through the assistant's disguise. Sparks flew, illuminating her face in brief, jagged flashes, and for a second, she looked like a hero in a grimy action movie. She flipped the main breaker, and suddenly, the massive lights hummed back to life, flooding the set with brilliance. The set went silent, stunned by the sudden return of light, then erupted in relieved murmurs. Ethan blinked, looking around, confused by the sudden salvation. Who did that? Who fixed it? He demanded, looking for a savior praise. The gaffer, wiping sweat from his brow, pointed at the mousy assistant retreating into the shadows. It was Annie, boss. She jumped the line. It was genius. Ethan stared at her, unable to comprehend that the clumsy coffee girl had just saved his shoot. For a fleeting second, the arrogance slipped from his face, replaced by genuine shock. He walked over to where she was coiling a heavy cable. "You did this?" he asked, skeptical. Chloe, keeping her head down and voice altered, simply nodded. "My dad taught me a few things," she mumbled. It was the truth, but Ethan heard only what he wanted to hear, a lucky break from a nobody. He didn't see the intelligence, the inner beauty of capability. He just saw a problem solved that saved his schedule. Well, he huffed, regaining his composure and his ego. At least someone here is earning their minimum wage. He turned away, shouting action, before the moment could sink in. He didn't offer a bonus, a raise, or a real thank you. He took her brilliance for granted, absorbing it into his own success as if he had willed it to happen. He didn't realize that this Annie was overqualified to run the entire studio, let alone fix a fuse box. Chloe watched him go, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips. She had saved the day not for him, but for the crew who would have been blamed for the failure. It was an act of unconditional love for the craft and the people who worked in the dark. She had proven her value without saying a word, a silent victory in the ongoing war. Ethan thought he was the captain, but Annie was the one actually steering the ship through the storm, keeping them off the rocks. The next day, Ethan was in a rare, almost manic good mood, fueled by the successful shot the day before. He gathered the department heads for a morning meeting, with Annie hovering in the background holding a tray of pastries. Yesterday was a close call, Ethan announced, pacing like a motivational speaker. But it shows that even the lowest on the totem pole can be useful. He gestured vaguely toward Annie. Even the coffee girl has her moments. It was a backhanded compliment, dripping with arrogance, but it was the closest thing to praise he was capable of giving. "She's got more brain cells than that actress we fired last week," Ethan laughed, pivoting instantly to mock Chloe. The room went stiff with discomfort. What was her name? Chloe? God, she was useless. A pretty face with nothing behind it. He was rewriting history, comparing the incompetent actress to the useful assistant, completely blind to the fact that they were the same woman. It was a moment of dramatic irony, so thick it was suffocating. A joke that only Chloe understood. Chloe stood there, gripping the silver tray so hard her knuckles turned white. To hear him praise her secret identity while trashing her true self was a surreal form of torture. It proved that his judgment was entirely superficial. He respected Annie because she was useful to him, but he despised Chloe because she didn't fit his aesthetic. He couldn't see the soul connecting the two. He was praising the mask while spitting on the face beneath it. That Chloe, he continued, enjoying his own cruelty. She's probably crying in a diner somewhere, realizing she'll never make it. We did her a favor, really, saved her from a lifetime of rejection. He chuckled, looking for validation from his team. The crew looked down at their shoes, uncomfortable with the humiliated ghost he was summoning. They knew Chloe had been kind, and Ethan's malice felt unnecessary, petty, and gross. Annie stepped forward to refill his water, her hand trembling slightly with suppressed emotion. Ethan didn't notice the tremble. He only saw the service. "Good work yesterday, Annie," he said, not looking at her. "Keep it up, and maybe I won't fire you too." He thought he was being benevolent, the generous millionaire tossing crumbs to the peasants. He didn't see the fire burning behind her thick glasses. She wanted to rip off the wig, to scream the truth in his face, to show him the shocking revelation right then and there. But she held back. The lesson wasn't finished. He needed to fall further. He needed to understand that the people he stepped on were the ground he stood on. She poured the water with steady precision, swallowing her pride, letting the instant karma continue to simmer on the back burner. "Thank you, sir," she whispered, her voice a masterpiece of acting. She retreated to the corner, watching him preen. He was digging his own grave with his mouth, insult by insult. He was attacking a woman who could buy and sell him, proving that money can't buy class, and authority doesn't equal wisdom. The reckoning was coming, and every insult just added another zero to the final bill. Enter Isabella, St. James. The replacement actress Ethan had read a stunning, glamorous, and utterly soulless woman who embodied everything Ethan thought he wanted in a star. She arrived on set like a hurricane of entitlement, demanding a bigger trailer, specific sparkling water imported from France, and that no crew member look her in the eye. She was a quintessential rich girl villain, a mirror image of Ethan's own vanity, amplified by fame. Isabella spotted Annie struggling with a heavy box of props and decided she needed a target to flex her power. "You there, assistant," she screeched, her voice grating. "You're breathing too loud. It's distracting me from my process." She kicked the box out of Chloe's hands, sending expensive props scattering across the floor. It was a display of pure, unadulterated cruelty, a Hollywood drama power move designed to establish dominance. The crew watched in horror, waiting for Ethan to intervene and protect his staff. But Ethan did nothing. He watched, amused, as a star humiliated his savior. He valued Isabella's star power and aesthetic over Annie's human dignity. Chloe knelt to pick up the mess, and Isabella sneered. "Look at her. Pathetic. Some people are just born to serve, aren't they?" She laughed, a sound that grated on the soul. It was the ultimate test of don't judge, placing the ugly assistant against the beautiful monster. Instead of snapping, Chloe picked up a dropped mirror and handed it to Isabella. "You dropped this, Mississippi St. James," she said gently, her voice devoid of malice. "You look beautiful today." The kindness was a weapon. It disarmed Isabella completely. She expected a fight, tears, or anger. She didn't know how to handle unconditional love or grace in the face of abuse. She snatched the mirror, confused, muttering something about knowing your place, but the wind was taking out her sails. Ethan watched this exchange, and for the first time, a flicker of genuine confusion crossed his face. He saw the lowly assistant respond to abuse with a dignity that his expensive star lacked entirely. He saw a flash of inner beauty in Annie that made Isabella's outer beauty look cheap and plastic by comparison. It was a crack in his worldview, a tiny fissure in the dam of his arrogance that let a drop of light in. Chloe walked away with her head high, leaving Isabella looking petty and small despite her millions. The crew saw it too. They saw who the real queen of the set was. It wasn't the woman in the spotlight. It was the woman in the shadows. Chloe was teaching a masterclass in class, proving that being a producer's daughter wasn't about money, it was about breeding and character. Ethan felt a strange pang in his chest, a feeling he couldn't name. It was a beginning of respect, a seed planted in the most unlikely of places. He would start to see Annie not just as a tool, but as a person. But he was still too blind to realize that the person he was beginning to admire was the same one he had cast aside. The irony was tightening its grip around his neck. Over the next few days, the dynamic on set shifted subtly but undeniably. Ethan found himself watching Annie more than he watched his high-definition monitors. He noticed the way she anticipated problems before they happened, the way she calmed the stressed-out crew with a whisper, the way her intelligence shone through the baggy clothes and fake glasses. He started asking her opinion on small things: a color choice, a camera angle, a script line. "What do you think, Annie?" Head asked, surprising himself and everyone else. He felt a confusing pull toward the assistant, a magnetic attraction to her competence and kindness. It wasn't a physical attraction, was too shallow for that, he told himself, still obsessed with beauty but an intellectual one. He was falling for her mind, her spirit, the very things he had ignored in Chloe. It was a shocking revelation in slow motion. He was valuing the substance over the style for the first time in his life. One late night, sharing a greasy pizza on the studio floor, while reviewing scripts, Ethan opened up. "You know, this industry is full of sharks," he sighed, rubbing his temples, looking older than his years. "It's hard to find anyone real. Everyone wants something." He looked at Annie, really looked at her, and saw a warmth he hadn't seen in years. "You're different, Annie. You listen. You don't judge." He was confessing to his own victim, a moment of intimacy built on a lie. Chloe felt a pang of conflict deep in her chest. She saw a vulnerable side to Ethan, a lonely boy hiding behind the director persona. She realized that his arrogance was a shield, a defense mechanism against a world he didn't trust. She almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But she remembered the humiliation, the firing, the cruelty. She kept her guard up, offering him generic advice, playing the role of the wise simpleton to protect herself. "Maybe you just need to look harder, sir," she said softly, her eyes in behind the lenses. "Sometimes the best things aren't the shiniest. Sometimes value is hidden." Ethan laughed, a genuine tired sound. "Maybe you're right, Annie. Maybe I've been looking at things all wrong." He was on the verge of a breakthrough, teetering on the edge of redemption, close to understanding the truth. But the universe wasn't done with him yet. Just as he was starting to soften, the reality of his financial recklessness was about to crash down. The connection he felt with Annie was a lifeline, but he was about to set fire to the rope in a moment of panic. The Hollywood drama was about to shift from a romance of the mind to a tragedy of the wallet. He went home that night thinking about the assistant with the baggy overalls, unaware that he had just spent the evening with the rich girl he despised. The threads of fate were tangling, preparing to strangle his ego once and for all. He was waking up, but the nightmare was just beginning, and the morning would bring a rude awakening. The bubble burst on a Monday morning with the violence of a car crash. Ethan arrived on set to find the equipment trucks locked and the crew standing around in ominous silence. Gary, the line producer, looked pale as a sheet, sweating profusely. "Ethan, we have a problem," he stammered, holding his tablet like a shield. "The credit cards were declined. All of them. The vendors are pulling the gear. We can't even buy coffee." The production had officially run out of money. Ethan stormed into production office, dialing the studio furiously, his face a mass of rage. "This is a mistake. I am Ethan Brooks. Do you know who I am?" He shouted into the phone. But the voice on the other end was cold and robotic. "The accounts have been frozen, Mr. Brooks. By order of the executive producer, you've exceeded the budget by $300. It's over." The call ended with a click. The millionaire lifestyle of the production had hit a wall of reality. Panic set in, cold and sharp. Without money, there was no movie. No movie meant career suicide. Ethan's face turned red, the veins in his neck bulging. He needed a scapegoat. He needed to lash out. The stress was a physical weight, crushing his newfound softness and driving him back to his darkest instincts. He reverted instantly to the tyrant, the cornered animal biting at anything that moved. He stormed out to the set, looking for someone to blame for his own incompetence. He saw the crew whispering, saw the fear and the judgment in their eyes. He felt humiliated, stripped of his power. His perfect image was crumbling before his eyes. He wasn't the genius director anymore. He was the guy who couldn't pay the bills. The illusion was gone. "Get back to work." He screamed, but nobody moved. "I said work. We can't work without lights." "Ethan," a cameraman shouted back, defying him. The boss versus employee dynamic had flipped. They held the labor, and he had no capital to buy it. He was powerless, a king without an army. In the midst of this meltdown, he saw Annie standing by the craft services table, calmly organizing receipts. The sight of her calm amidst this chaos infuriated him. Why wasn't she panicking? Why wasn't she afraid? Her composure felt like an insult to his crisis. He needed to hurt someone to feel powerful again. He marched toward her, a bull seeing red. The instant karma was circling, but he was too blind to see it. He was about to make the final mistake, the one that would seal his fate forever. He was about to bite the hand that literalized the production. Ethan reached the craft services table and swiped a stack of papers from Annie's hands, scattering them across the floor in a flurry of white. "What are you doing? Organizing receipts while my movie burns?" He screamed, spit flying. It was irrational, manic behavior. Annie looked up, startled but unafraid, her eyes calm behind the glasses. "I was just trying to see where we could save." "Save? You think you can save this?" Ethan interrupted, laughing hysterically. "You're a nobody, a zero. You and your cheap clothes and your stupid glasses." He was projecting all his self-loathing onto her. He attacked her appearance, her station, her very existence. It was a director at his absolute worst, bullying the lowest-ranking person to feel tall. "Get out!" Ethan shrieked, his voice cracking. "You're fired. You're all fired. But especially you. You're bad luck. Every time I look at you, things go wrong." He pointed a trembling finger at the gate. He was firing the assistant for a minor mistake that wasn't even a mistake. He was firing her because she witnessed his failure. He wanted to erase the witnesses to his shame. Chloe stood up slowly. The time for games was over. She had seen enough. She had seen the glimmer of good, but it was buried under mountains of arrogance. She looked at him with a disappointment that was heavier than anger. "You really haven't learned anything, have you, Ethan?" she asked, her voice dropping the Annie accent, returning to the cultured tone of Chloe. Ethan paused, confused by the tone shift, but he was too far gone in his rage. "I said get out," he roared. Chloe nodded once. "Okay, Ethan, I'm going." She took off the baseball cap, took off the glasses, and shook out her hair. She didn't reveal her name yet, but she revealed her presence. The air in the room shifted. She turned and walked away, and this time she didn't stop to look back. She walked straight to production office, pulled out her phone, and made the call she had delayed for weeks. "Dad, it's me. Shut it down. All of it. He's done." The command was given. The sword fell. Ethan watched her go, panting, feeling a hollow victory. He had won the argument, but he had lost the war. He didn't know that the moment she stepped off the lot, the entire machinery of production would grind to a halt. He had just fired his own executioner, and she was going to pull the lever from the outside. The effect was instantaneous and brutal. Within 10 minutes of Chloe leaving, phones started ringing across the set. Agents, unions, vendors. The lights that had been miraculously fixed suddenly went dark again this time because the power company cut the line remotely. The catering trucks packed up and left. The security guards received orders to lock the gates. The production was not just paused, it was dead. Ethan stood in the center of the dark studio, confused and small. "What is happening?" he demanded to the empty air. Gary walked up to him, holding his phone, his face gray with shock. "It's over, Ethan." The studio pulled the plug. Completely. They said the order came from the top. The absolute top. They are seizing the assets. "The top? You mean the CEO?" Ethan asked, his voice trembling. "Higher," Gary whispered, looking terrified. "The ownership family. The Barnes family." Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. He had angered the gods of the industry. But how? Why now? He couldn't connect the dots to the assistant he had just screamed at. The crew began to pack up their personal gear in silence. There was no anger anymore, just resignation and pity. They looked at Ethan like a tragic figure. He was a captain without a ship, a director without a movie. The Hollywood drama had reached its tragic climax. He sat down in his chair, the one with his name on it, and put his head in his hands. He had ignored the budget, abused the staff, and fired the help. Now he was sitting in the wreckage of his own arrogance. He thought about Annie. He thought about Chloe. He realized he was alone. The silence of the soundstage was deafening. It was a sound of instant karma settling in for a long stay. He tried to call his agent, but it went straight to voicemail. He was toxic, Radioactive. The news was already out on the blogs. Ethan Brooks destroys production. He was finished. He sat there for hours as the studio emptied, leaving him in the dark, contemplating the ruin of his life. But then, the sound of a luxury car approaching broke the silence. The heavy doors of the soundstage opened, letting in a blinding beam of sunlight. A silhouette stood there. It wasn't the police. It wasn't security. It was the executive producer, a man Ethan had only met once. And he wasn't alone. The executive producer, Mr. Sterling, walked in, flanked by two suits, looking grim. But Ethan's eyes were glued to the woman walking beside him. She was wearing a sharp, tailored power suit, high heels, and her hair was done perfectly. It was Chloe Barnes. But she didn't look like the struggling actress or the mousy assistant. She looked like she owned the place. Because she did. Ethan, Mr. Sterling said, his voice echoing in the cavernous room. I believe you know my daughter, Chloe. The world stopped spinning for Ethan Brooks. The words hung in the air like a guillotine blade waiting to drop. Producer's daughter. The ugly actress. The clumsy assistant. The rich girl. They were all the same person. The woman he had called useless, the woman he fired twice, was the one who controlled every single penny of his budget. Ethan's mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked from Mr. Sterling to Chloe. She looked back at him, calm, powerful, radiant. There was no smugness in her face, just a serene authority. Hello, Ethan, she said, her voice cool and clear. I believe we have some unfinished business regarding my employment. The shocking revelation hit him like a physical blow to the gut. He fell back into his chair. He replayed every insult, every scream, every moment of cruelty. He had humiliated his boss. He had treated the heir to the studio like garbage. He realized with a sickening lurch that she had been there the whole time, watching, testing, giving him chance after chance to be a decent human being. And he had failed every single time. You're... He stammered, unable to form a sentence. Yes, Chloe said, stepping closer. I wanted to make it on my own merits. I wanted to be cast for my talent, not my name. But you didn't look at my talent, Ethan. You only looked at my face. And then, when I tried to help you as Annie, you only looked at my utility. It was the ultimate poetic justice. The judge and jury had been in the room with him all along. He had dug his own grave while she handed him the shovel. The secret identity was unveiled, and the brilliance of it was blinding. He wasn't just fired, he was destroyed by the truth he was too blind to see. Ethan didn't beg for his job. He couldn't. The weight of his shame was too heavy to bear. For the first time in his life, the arrogance evaporated completely, leaving behind a raw, painful self-awareness. He realized he was a villain of his own story. He looked at Chloe not as a target, not as a tool, but as a superior being. She had shown inner beauty and patience. He had shown ugliness and haste. I am so sorry, he whispered, and for the first time in years, he meant it. He wasn't apologizing to save his movie. He was apologizing because he saw himself clearly, and he hated what he saw. He realized he had judged a woman who held his fate in her hands, and in doing so, he had judged himself lacking. Chloe watched him, gauging his sincerity. She saw the regret in his eyes. It was real. The instant karma had done its work. The bully was broken. I don't want your apology for me, Ethan, she said sternly. I can handle bullies. I want you to apologize to the crew, to the people you hurt, to the people whose livelihoods you played with like toys. Ethan nodded, tears stinging his eyes. I will, he said, his voice cracking. I'll do whatever you want. He was crushed, but in the wreckage, there was a glimmer of hope. The destruction of his ego was necessary for the birth of his conscience. He had to lose himself to find himself. He stood up, his legs shaky. He walked past the millionaire producers, past the woman he had wronged, and walked out of the studio. He felt smaller than he ever had, but also, strangely, more real. He had lost everything, his status, his movie, his money, but he had found the truth. He went home and didn't sleep. He replayed the last few weeks in his mind like a horror movie. The ugly comments, the firing, the Annie insults. It was a torture reel. He realized that true ugliness wasn't about cheekbones or waistlines. It was about how you treat people who could do nothing for you. And he had been the ugliest person on set. 2 days later, Ethan tracked Chloe down, not at the studio, but at a charity event she was hosting for underprivileged artists. He didn't have an invitation, and he wasn't wearing his director costume. He wore a simple, off-the-rack suit, looking humble, stripped of his pretension. Security tried to stop him at the door, but Chloe saw him and waved them off. He walked up to her, ignoring the other rich girl socialites and industry titans holding champagne. "Chloe," he said, his voice steady but low, "I'm not here to ask for money. I'm not here to ask for the movie back. I know I lost that right." He took a deep breath, shaking slightly. He handed her a thick folder. "This is my resignation letter from the Directors Guild. And this," he pointed to a certified check, "is the sale of my car, my house, and my stocks. It's not enough to cover the overages, but it's everything I have, every cent. Please, use it to pay the crew for the weeks they lost." Chloe stared at the check. He had liquidated his entire life to pay his debts to the little people. It was a gesture of redemption she hadn't expected. He wasn't just saying sorry, he was bleeding for it. He was showing unconditional love for the team he had abused. "I don't expect forgiveness," Ethan said, turning to leave. His shoulders slumped. "I just wanted you to know that I see you now. And you are incredible. Not because of who your father is, but because of who you are. You were the best part of that set." He walked away, leaving the check in her hand. He had lost a Hollywood drama, but he had won back his soul. He was ready to flip burgers or sweep floors, as long as he never became that monster again. He was free. Chloe watched him walk away, her heart hammering in her chest. She had wanted to teach him a lesson, yes. She had wanted him to feel humiliated, yes. But she hadn't expected this. She hadn't expected him to actually change. Most people in Hollywood just double down, sue, or blame others. Ethan had resigned to save the crew. He had sacrificed his millionaire status for his integrity. She ran after him, heels clicking on the pavement. "Ethan," she called out. He stopped, turning around in the rain because, of course, it started to rain, adding to the drama. He looked like a tragic hero, soaked and broke, but somehow dignified. "You're not quitting," Chloe said, catching her breath. "And you're not selling your house." She tore the check in half right there in the rain. "You made a mess, Ethan. A huge, expensive mess." She stepped closer, looking him in the eye. "But you're the only one who can fix it. You have the vision. You just lack the heart. But I think you found it." Ethan looked at her, stunned, water dripping from his nose. You let me back?" "On one condition," Chloe said, her eyes flashing with a challenge. "You don't work for the studio anymore. You work for me, and you listen to everyone, to the grip, to the intern, to the assistant. You treat them like gold." "I will," Ethan promised, and the rain washed away the last of the old Ethan. "I'll listen, I swear." It was a moment of poetic justice turned into partnership. The boss versus employee dynamic was gone, replaced by mutual respect. He had proved he changed. He was willing to lose everything to make it right. That was the currency Chloe respected. She saw his redemption was real. She saw the man beneath the monster, and she decided he was worth saving. The production resumed the following week, but the vibe was entirely different. Ethan Brooks was back in the director's chair, but the shouting was gone. He knew everyone's name. He asked for input. He brought coffee for the interns. He treated Annie, who was now openly Chloe, the executive producer, with a reverence that bordered on worship. He recast the lead role immediately. He fired Isabella St. James, who screamed all the way to the parking lot, threatening lawsuits, and gave the role to the person who deserved it, Chloe. "You were right," he told her in front of the cheering crew. "You belong in the frame. You are the aesthetic." Chloe stepped in front of camera, and this time, Ethan saw her through a lens of love and respect. She was radiant. The performance was raw, honest, and beautiful. The casting audition was finally complete. The ugly actress was the star of the show, and she shone brighter than any light rig. As the weeks went on, the professional respect deepened into something more. Late nights in the editing room turned into dinners. The confusing pull Ethan had felt for Annie blossomed into a romance with Chloe. It was a love built on the wreckage of their past, forged in a fire of don't judge and tempered by forgiveness. The movie became a massive hit, not because of the expensive effects, but because of the heart at its core. In the final interview, holding Chloe's hand, Ethan looked at the camera with a smile. "I used to think I was a genius," he said, "but I was just a blind man until she opened my eyes." It was the perfect Hollywood drama ending. The director and the producer's daughter, partners in art and life. They had walked through fire, humiliation, and ruin to find each other. And in the end, the only thing that really mattered was the truth they found in the dark. True vision isn't about 8K resolution or perfect lighting. It's about the capacity to see the human soul beneath the surface. Ethan Brooks had to lose his entire world to finally realize that kindness is the only luxury that truly matters. He learned in the hardest way possible that the most beautiful script isn't written with arrogance or money, but with humility and respect. We often look for heroes in high places, but sometimes the saviors are the ones sweeping the floor right in front of us. If you believe that character outweighs currency and that everyone from the CEO to the assistant deserves to be treated with absolute dignity, then you have found your tribe. This channel isn't just about stories, it's a sanctuary for the truth tellers and the believers in justice. Subscribe right now and join a growing community that refuses to judge a book by its cover. Let's build a place where the underdogs are the main characters. Now, I have a mission for you to cement this lesson. Like this video to send a powerful signal to the algorithm in the world that bullies don't win in the end, and that redemption is always possible. Comment below with your own truth. Have you ever been underestimated by someone in power? How did you handle it? Let's turn the comment section into a wall of resilience and shared strength. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that their worth is infinite, regardless of their title, their bank account, or what anyone else says. And while the credits roll, don't let the inspiration stop here. Our channel is a deep treasure chest of emotional journeys, just like this one. Dive into our archives to uncover more stories of karma served cold and justice served right. And for the future, let's just say we have a story coming up next week that makes Ethan's drama look like a dress rehearsal. The stakes are higher, the twist is crazier, and the emotion is raw. Turn on that notification bell. Right now, you absolutely do not want to be left in the dark when the next shocker drops.